Hello and welcome to the Watering Hole. Thanks for checking out this clip. Don't forget to like and subscribe because that'll make the baby Jesus cry, and I know how much you guys love making the baby Jesus cry. Before getting into this clip, this news item has had quite a bit of bad coverage, and the article that I chose was not one of the better ones, so I got some stuff wrong. Kansas actually has pretty strong abortion protections that were upheld by their Supreme Court on the basis of medical care being a private matter between doctors and their patients. The issue that was being voted on was not a ballot measure type of referendum, it was actually going to be an amendment to the Kansas Constitution that would make it possible for the legislature to pass laws restricting abortion, except in the cases of rape and incest. But in order to amend the Kansas Constitution, it not only has to pass the state House and Senate, it has to be voted on by the people, and only needs 50.1% of voters to vote in favor of the amendment for it to pass. And, spoiler, the proposed amendment did not pass. Now on to the clip. Next up, we've got some good news, and I need to recrop again because every fucking news article or news site crops their stuff different or puts their stuff. I don't know. It's always this
orientation.
Yeah, it's always this like narrow column right in the middle with like all sorts of shit on the right and left. But then there's like you scroll down, there's nothing there for most of it. So it's just like wasted white space. Like why? I guess most people are reading it on their phones, so it's formatted for that.
Yeah, more than likely.
So anyway, good news. Kansas voted to protect abortion rights in their state constitution.
Yeah, and it was by a margin of like 10% too.
Yeah, was like pretty big for Kansas. Like this is Kansas we're talking about. This is like hardcore red state. And they voted, yes, we'll keep abortion in the Constitution. Now, what I'm understanding from this article is that abortion in Kansas are limited to 22 weeks in the cases of life-threatening or severely compromised physical complications. My understanding of that is that it's still pretty restrictive. Like you can only get abortion up to 22 weeks and it has to be life-threatening or there have to be severely compromised physical complications. That might just be a poorly written sentence. Maybe it's that you can get an abortion for any reason up to 22 weeks and after that it has to be life-threatening or compromised physical complications.
I can actually check into that right now.
Sure, go for it. I was planning on doing that, but I today was weird and busy and
understandable. We go ahead and check here.
Okay.
All right, so I've got the restrictions pulled up for Kansas.
Okay.
So Kansas law prohibits abortion at 22 weeks and anything that's considered post-viability. However, the state does assert that life begins at fertilization, which means you can't have certain procedures still. So like you cannot have an abortion for the sake of sex selection. You can't have an abortion unless you are willing to undergo a mandatory 24-hour waiting period. I'm just going to go ahead and straight up say that's just the guilt trip period.
Yeah.
That's all that is. They also limit public funding and they limit private insurance coverage of abortion so that you can't get them fully covered usually. And if a minor needs an abortion, Kansas requires that both parents or the judge in the case has to consent to the minor's abortion.
I don't like that.
I don't like that one either. I feel like it should just be this person is not a legal adult. It's allowed. That should be the stopgap right there.
Okay. So my daughter has a physical appointment coming up, and she's a teenager now. So I actually sat her down and had the talk, and was like, "Hey, if you don't want me in the room, you just tell me to get the fuck out, and I will get the fuck out." Because this like it's your body. You discuss it with this is now your doctor, and if you tell the doctor that you don't want me to know certain things, that's okay. Now, I feel like the fact that I have this relationship with my daughter, like where I tell her these things, I feel like she's comfortable talking to me about stuff like this. And I really, really love that. And I appreciate that. But I also want her to know that like, if there's anything ever like with her health, I just want what's best for her. If she's not comfortable with me knowing something, but she'll talk to the doctor about it and they'll work out something that's best for her between the two of them. Only thing I need to know is go to the pharmacy to pick up the prescription. If the doctor thinks that's what she needs, that's all I need to know. And so I have that conversation with, and so like, if she were to ever need an abortion or something, like I would absolutely consent to that. But at the same time, I can understand, like, from her perspective, if she's not comfortable talking to me about that, I still want her to have the option to go do that.
Yeah, the need to have the parents' consent there confuses me because there's a million reasons why you might not want to have the parents involved there. Say you've got really abusive, hyper fundamentalist Christian parents, they might end up punishing you a fuck ton
Yeah.
for the sin of getting pregnant, even if it was like you didn't consent to the pregnancy to begin with.
And in a lot of states, they'll force you to fucking get married to the guy who got you pregnant, even if you're underage. Well,
You know what they say,
we're getting
though?
to that in
At
the
least
next
that's
story.
biblical. That's biblical.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, that's the majority of this. Like, I kind of wanted to point out that, like, they kind of targeted this referendum for when voter turnout is historically low, and they actually did pull a bunch of voter shenanigans to try and make it hard. They made it confusing on the ballot. They didn't write it clearly, and in spite of all of that, they still voted no. We want to keep it in the Constitution that abortion is okay. Even, like, it's not like, it's still fairly restrictive, but at least they have access to it somewhat.
Yeah. Something is better than nothing, but that
Yeah.
something could be better.
It could be a lot better, but it's better than just criminalizing it outright. Also,
Yeah.
I kind of want to bring up the idea that, like, one of the things that I often hear is like, oh no, it's okay because, like, they'll still allow abortion in cases where the mother's life or the pregnant person's life is at risk. And it's like,
No.
okay, first off, no, there are people that actively advocate against that.
There are
Like,
people
right
who say
now.
that you have to keep an ectopic pregnancy still.
Yeah, which there's zero chance that that's going to be viable. But then on the flip side of that, it's almost never is it a very clear 100%, like, if you go through with this pregnancy, it will kill the pregnant person. Never is it 100% on that. Like, there's always a chance of survival. Even with an ectopic pregnancy, you're probably going to die, but there's a chance of survival. So when these abortion doctors are considering whether or not to perform an abortion, if the only reason for an abortion could be to save the life of the pregnant person, then they're going to be thinking, like, okay, are they going to get a Catholic doctor up on the stand in court to say that, like, oh no, actually the chances of that pregnant person surviving would be significantly better than this doctor originally estimated. So now they're going to be, like, erring on the side of not performing abortions for the sake of protecting their medical licenses and protecting themselves from lawsuits and criminal charges potentially.
When it would be better to just go,
Yeah, so, like,
hey, is this my body? No? Okay, cool.
Yeah, so it's almost never just a yes, no, will the person die if they continue with this pregnancy. It's almost never just flat yes, no. It's always like, oh, it's like your chances are 70-30, 60-40.
And those chances, awkwardly, and I think this is the thing that a lot of people who talk about this topic don't understand. Every single number that doctor pulls is going to be right out of their ass. They cannot give you accurate statistics on something happening in the future.
I mean, it's an educated guess, but it's still a guess.
It's a guess at the end of the day. Like when a doctor says you've got 6 months to live, that is a guess. Now, granted, that's a guess based on a lot of cases, but that's still a guess. It's why when people go, I lived past the point, those doctors don't. This is the thing that my family does. And it's why I kind of have an issue with it. My family will hear the doctor make their guess, and then when the guess turns out to be wrong or they undershot, they'll start going, the doctors don't know what they're talking about. I'm like, no, they know what they're talking about, but you cannot tell. They can't predict the future. A meteorologist has more ability to see if a storm is coming, and even they can still be wrong. Like, yeah.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing. So to bring this in personally for me, when my wife died and they brought her into the hospital, I had that phone call with the doctor where it's like, this is what we think her chances of survival are. And they're like asking me, do you want us to try the procedure or just let her die? Because at that point we knew that, like, even if the procedure was successful, she would be in a wheelchair for the rest of her life and, like, paralyzed and potentially not even really conscious. And actually, so to sidetrack it a little bit, this is why it's very important for everybody to have the discussion with your loved ones about when you want to, like, medically speaking, give up, because I had not really had that conversation with her. And so when the doctor called me and asked about that, I was like, no, of course, save her no matter what. Just do what you can, save her. But thinking back, like that was what I said in the moment, in the stress of the moment.
Because the one thing you want is your loved one to live.
Yeah. But thinking back on that, I'm like, she would not have liked that decision, I don't think. She would not have been happy with that, because if she had survived, she would have been basically a vegetable for the rest of her life. She would have been in a wheelchair, not able to communicate, not able to talk, and like completely dependent on me to do, like, I like my whole life would have had to have changed to accommodate having someone that is completely 100% disabled, cannot do anything for themselves, is paralyzed, and it's questionable whether or not they're even mentally there, because the aneurysm was, I don't know if it was an aneurysm, but like she had blood vessels in like the middle of her brain burst, and they were so deep in there that the damage was so extensive. There was no question that like she would never have come back the same as she was, even if like if the neurosurgeon had been in the room with us and was able to administer treatment immediately, it wouldn't have made a difference. And so that's why it's important to have these conversations, because like in the heat of the moment, I'm just like, yeah, save the person I love. But thinking back on it, I'm like, no, she would not have wanted that. She would not have wanted that life. She would not have wanted to be that burden on her family. And like, I don't know. It just, sorry, I didn't mean to bring the mood down.
No,
but
you're okay. And also, like, if you ever need to talk, you know I'm here, okay?
Yeah, I know. Thank you.
But point is, I think we both agree there's whenever a doctor is giving the estimate for your survival, that's a factor when talking about an abortion. It should not be the only factor. Whether or not you consent to the pregnancy, whether or not you are comfortable with only a 60% chance, that those are more important to me than just the raw numbers. And I think they're more important to most people than just the raw numbers.
Yeah. Absolutely. Anyway, that's the main points I wanted to make with this. I also wanted to bring some good news. So like, yeah, Kentucky's abortion things are pretty restrictive, but at least they're still there.
Mm-hmm.